Well, let's get started. Thank you all for attending today's Wide Angle Wednesdays. We are so happy to have Caitlin Burns, our newest adjunct at CNM Film, to be presenting her workshop on networking, how to find a job in the film and media industry. And this is going to be a hands-on, interactive workshop, and we're just so pleased. I'm going to let Caitlin talk about herself.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim.
You're welcome.
I'm thrilled to be here. I'm a new adjunct with CNM, so you all are my first formal class of any kind, so thank you for being here with me. And thank you for those of you at home joining us today, and to those of you out there in the future who will be viewing this recording in the future. I'm really excited to be coming to you all live and recorded and masked, and it's definitely making me realize how much I rely on silly facial expressions to convey meaning. So bear with me. If the jokes are bad, laugh anyway. And I'm really excited to be telling you a little bit about myself today and talking about finding jobs, building careers, and presenting your own work in the entertainment industry. To start things off with a little bit of housekeeping, if you take a picture of this QR code, it'll take you directly to this deck. So if you're taking notes or you want to follow along, this deck will be available to you after the fact. But it's also at that small URL. And I'm looking forward to hearing from each of you or any of you who want to reach out to me. The easiest way to find me is on Twitter at that handle up there, Caitlin_Burns. So if you do have questions after the session, feel free to reach out. I always love to meet new people, and I'm really excited to meet new people here in the New Mexico film industry because I'm a New Mexican. I moved here really recently, and I'm excited to learn more about the whole state. So, who am I? In addition to being an adjunct here, I'm head of story at Palm NFT Studios, which is a group that builds experiences and strategies for games and experiences using NFTs. But my background is a lot of entertainment industry focused work. I have been on the board of the Producers Guild of America's New Media Council for 6 years. I am a member of the International Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. I also am a visiting professional for Carnegie Mellon's Entertainment Technology Center, which is media and technology arts. I got my start in a weird role called transmedia producer, building stories across platforms with really big intellectual properties. So I've worked on Pirates of the Caribbean, Halo, Avatar, Tron Legacy, Disney Fairies, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for Nickelodeon, The Amazing Spider-Man for Sony, and a lot of others. And this was working with different teams that were making films, television shows, but also all the associated games, comic books and storylines around the world, consumer products, theme parks, and more. I've also worked in advertising on the Coca-Cola project, The Happiness Factory, among others, with philanthropic organizations like UNICEF on the UNICEF Kid Power program. I worked in commercial space tourism. I was head of production for Space Nation, which creates astronautic training experiences for people on Earth. They're currently putting out virtual training sessions via Zoom, sort of remote escape rooms that are teaching you how to handle different things that apply to your everyday life through the lens of how astronauts train to handle crises in everyday situations. I've worked a lot in emerging media, including VR camera work, as well as VR interactive and game engine-based pieces, as well as live virtual reality for festivals and programs like Rolling Loud. And I am the executive producer of the Vancouver International Film Festival's VIF Immersed slate, which is virtual reality and augmented reality works based on volumetric capture, camera capture, animation, and documentary. So that's a lot, right? And it's a lot to think about all at once. I just told you a whole lot of information, but some of it maybe you retained, right? Maybe a little bit. When we're introducing ourselves to one another, this is the easiest way to pitch. This is the core. If I didn't have 3 hours with all of you today, I would have distilled that much, much quicker, right? If we were talking at a party, I would have tried to get right in there with the hook of why you should listen to me and why I'm here to talk about building a career in the entertainment industry. And The Princess Bride is a really great example. So, Inigo Montoya, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die. We've got a polite greeting, you know? No reason not to be civil, always want to set it up on the good note. Who are you? Pretty critical piece of information, put it right up there at the top. A relevant personal link. If you're at a class together and you haven't met before, you both have this in common, right? So that link could be, we're both interested in lighting, or we're both interested in documentary film, or we're both trying to figure out how to start a business, right? And then finally, manage expectations. I'm looking for opportunities to work on new projects, or I've got film experience and I'm looking for advertising work. These little things that help someone immediately understand who you are, what's going on and why it's interesting to know you, and what you guys can do together. One of the great secrets about networking events and job seeking is a lot of the time you can find scenarios where everyone is there with complementary goals. They're looking for creative partners, they're looking for people they can hire, they're looking for new projects. So in a vacuum, sitting in a classroom, thinking about, okay, how am I gonna find projects and jobs? It can feel pretty isolating. It's one of my least favorite things to sit down and work on a resume about myself or to think about how I'm gonna find my next project. Because again, when you're sitting alone in your room, it can feel like it's you against the world. But everyone in the industry has the desire to find new projects. It's an industry built on recurring and new projects that come up all the time. And everyone is engaging in this process together, whether they're on the hiring and project creation and business end, or they're on the below the line or above the line, trying to find their next project or the next thing that will help them get the next piece of skill building, the next really cool creative opportunity. Everyone is here for similar reasons. And one of the things we're gonna look at today is, how do you find those places where this is, everybody's there for this reason? Where are the places that feel comfortable to you based on your actual interests, where you can make friends, develop projects, and find the skills, the opportunity to build skills that'll help you get to the next level in the career you want to make. You with me? Okay. So, hi, I'm Caitlin Burns. I'm a producer, and I've worked on a really wide range of experiences, and I'm here today to help you learn how to connect with the projects that you want to work on, right? So I wrote this down, and I wrote this down about 3 separate times, and I really overthought it. But when I'm talking to you directly, when I'm looking at someone in the room, I can do that pretty quickly. Part of that is I took the time to write it down a couple times, so I'm like, what is the most interesting thing about me as a human in this room for this reason? The other part is I've done this a lot. People in the entertainment industry and people who are seeking out projects in this sort of contract-to-contract way end up doing a lot of networking to find their way to new projects and the creative projects they're interested in. So I'm gonna ask you to do that with me now. So for each of you, for you in the room, I'm gonna ask you to get up and say your own introductions in a second, but look at these 4 points. Take 5 minutes and sketch down, your polite greeting, your name, a little bit of why you're here, and what it is you're looking to get out of this particular session. Is it, I'm looking to become a cinematographer and I want to find my way into that path? Or I'm looking to explore short form comedy videos. This is not by any means the only opportunity you'll ever have to write an introduction, but think about it. Take 5 minutes now. For those of you at home, please do the same exercise. If you want to share, once you've got it together, share it in the chat on Zoom. If you want to send it to me after the fact, I'm really interested to hear what you're interested in and what made you choose our class today. So, in the interest of not overthinking it, once you've got something down, go ahead and come up here. You can either bring your paper or just wing it, because the practice is what's important, getting accustomed to introducing yourself and doing it enough times that it comes easily. So when you're done, please line up at the mic over here in the center, and I'd love to get to know you.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Roberta Griego. I'm interested in location sound, and I'm looking for projects to work on.
Fabulous. Wonderful to meet you, Roberta, right? Roberta? Excellent. So we've already got a location sound person in the room. Roberta, before I let you off the hook, what is your ultimate goal? What are you looking at pursuing long term?
I guess to get more experience in that field.
Okay, get more experience in the field. Absolutely valid. Thank you for letting me put you on the spot there. All right, do we have a next one? Yeah. Come on up, man.
Hi, my name is Kenny Alford, and my motivations in life are people, places, and experiences. I'm here looking for the same things professionally, and I'm hoping to get my foot in the door of a growing industry.
Kenny, that is a wonderful intro, very deep. I've got some follow-up questions for you.
Okay.
So, what would you say your specialty or current interest is in the film fields?
In the film industry, I'm looking to go into location scouting, location management.
Okay.
That would be the ideal position. But again, I'd just like to get my foot in the door and kind of find my way.
Awesome. So location scouting, location management, really, really cool. One thing I'll recommend is specific ask. Because, in a room like this, you could build an entire production team for a small project. So the more clear you are about what you're looking for in the near term, the faster you'll find a way to that position when you're networking. But I really loved hearing more about your overall big picture too. Excited to talk more. All right, we've got 2 more people in the crowd. Let's see who's next.
Got it? Hello, my name is Matt Denby. I originally wanted to start working in film to work with a relative that I look up to. And ultimately my goal in coming to these are to learn as much as I can in order to start in the industry and know exactly what I'm doing.
That's wonderful. What do you find yourself gravitating towards in sort of the different areas you might want to look at of work? Yeah.
I want to do grip.
Grip? That's a
Yes.
great part of the whole field.
Yeah, I've always liked to build.
Yeah, and so critical on step. It's one of those roles that people outside the industry know the least about, so it has a wonderful air of mystery, but also some of the most critical members of any crew. So thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. And one more at the back.
Hi, my name is Zachariah Montoya. My goal right now is to become a camera operator, and then, my final end goal is to be a cinematographer.
Fabulous, fabulous.
I'm here to start learning how to get into the field of joining the local 600 and becoming a camera operator.
Tremendous. Thank you so much for sharing, Zachariah. So, one of the great things about the entertainment industry is finding personal links with other people in a room. Usually, people who are in the entertainment industry, or even people who are adjacent to it, have things to talk about in common, because one of the most common ways to speak to one another and network is to talk about a show you've been watching, or a film that you liked, or to talk about different genres of storytelling. We have that in common with every other industry on earth. So in any room you're in, you can always bring it back to something that interests you, that you saw recently, or starting a conversation about something that is relevant based on a story you share. In almost any room in the world, you can start a conversation about Harry Potter. In almost any room in the world, you can start a conversation about the music video Gangnam Style. You have great opportunities to start conversations and build these relationships and friendships. Before we move on, I want to say thank you to Michael Coney for joining us, and of course, Ms. Amy Ballard, Dean of Applied Technologies, who have shared their intros in the Zoom chat. Michael, I hear you are an experienced designer looking for new roles in New York around themed and interactive entertainment. Thank you for joining us off LinkedIn. Oh, we've got one more person who's come in. Sorry, latecomer. I'm going to put you on the spot. Go ahead and put your stuff down and join us here at the mic for a second. Please come on up. Yeah. Yeah, right here, right next to the camera. All right. Hi, I'm Caitlin. It's great to meet you.
I'm Kara, nice to meet you. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries, but this is part of the fun. What we're doing right now is we're introducing ourselves, and we're using the Princess Bride method. So we have a personal greeting, your name, a little bit about what brought you here today, what you're interested in, and then finally, what you're looking for. What's your goal in the industry in general? So,
Okay,
yeah.
everybody said this? The first part? Oh, no. Hello, my name is Kira Baca. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
All right, so Kira, wonderful to meet you.
Thank you. I am just here today to see what this class is all about. I'm
Awesome.
very interested in what you have to tell us about
Okay.
getting into the industry, and
Mhm.
I'm looking personally to do hair,
Mhm.
so that's what I'm going for.
Phenomenal. That is a magical wizard superpower that I have spent my entire life struggling with.
It
So,
is, unfortunately, but
I am really excited to talk more about hair with you.
awesome.
And in the room, we have an aspiring camera operator and cinematographer, sound designer, hairdresser, location scout, and grip.
Very
That's
nice.
enough to get a crew started, guys.
Yeah.
So now each of you knows a little bit more about yourselves too, and I hope that you can get up to something together. It will be delightful.
Nice.
So thank you so much. Feel free to sit back down. So today we're going to cover a pretty wide range of things about looking for jobs, how that fits into building overall career goals, and how we present ourselves to potential jobs in different ways. All of this is really built around the entertainment industry, but a lot of it is also highly relevant for other jobs you might be looking for, other gigs you might be looking for, because all of this work that we're doing to build careers in the industry, to explore our creative interests, it's difficult. It's not more difficult than other industries, but it is difficult. Everyone I know who's made their way to director, cinematographer, executive producer has had periods of their career where they've done other things while they're pursuing their creative interests. James Cameron was a truck driver. He was able to drive trucks on set for the most part. But all of the skills that you're learning about now and all of the skills that you have in your whole life experience are skills that are useful in productions, in the entertainment industry more broadly, and you may choose at different times of your careers to focus on one versus another. The trick of it is to keep going, to think about what interests you most, what your ultimate goals are, and if you have to rest or you have trouble in one period, know that that's something that you can come back to your creative focuses and your production goals at a different time. Or keep looking at them while you're doing something that maybe is paying your rent that month. I've been there, everyone's been there, and it's important to recognize that this is a long-term goal of creating a really viable career that excites you, that allows you to express your creative passions, and work with other people who are there to make stories that will last longer than we'll be alive, because the opportunity to make something that really impacts people's lives in wonderful ways is what we're all here to do. So that's a very big, broad mission for this small class. But we're going to talk about jobs and career, presenting yourself, networking, which is actually a lot of fun, and pitching yourself and your work. So first, a gig versus a job versus a career. A gig is sort of the first thing that we think about when we're looking for work in the entertainment industry. This is a short-term contract. This is maybe one project. This is maybe even one part of a project that could turn into something more. For the most part, a career in the entertainment industry is built contract to contract. Even production companies are building project to project. So when we think about this, again, we've got this long career that we're building, that's our whole professional lives and everything that we may want to pursue. Then we have jobs that are sort of sequences of those contracts and those projects. And then gigs, which allow us to experiment, that give us the opportunities to build skills, to build a portfolio. But it's all kind of this continuum. And you'll make choices about taking this gig versus taking this job. Generally, when you think about the overall career question, if you want to be a camera operator or a cinematographer is your ultimate goal, right? And you're going to end up choosing a slate of projects, some of which are very much for hire, where your goal is, I need to sustain myself while I'm maybe working on something on the side that is less lucrative but more creatively exciting. If I have a job, I may be working full-time on one type of project, and in my off hours, developing an idea for something on a different platform or in a different genre. Or I may have a job where I have the opportunity to take another gig for a short term to explore another aspect of my interests, right? The shape of the work that we're thinking about in the entertainment industry is often a much more freelance model, where you are taking an active driver's seat in developing the work you're going to do, rather than signing on for a full-time position at a company where I'll work for 50 years, right? It kind of makes sense, right? So even if you do find a job at a production company or a group that's going to allow you to sort of develop your skills and grow with it, the company itself is still going to be thinking entrepreneurially about the projects it takes, the way it finds work, and who it's hiring on to take on bigger or smaller projects, right? So you're going to want to build relationships with other people around you, with people who you work with companies that you want to work with multiple times. And the whole time, you will be thinking about your career goals. And in my own life, I've had several sort of big groups of career goals. When I was younger, I wanted to pursue writing more. When I was slightly older, I got really excited by producing and running the business of the project. Now, I'm excited to go back to narrative design as well as producing in a new technology platform. All things considered, I'm making job decisions around my career goals, but it's very much been led by my interests. While I've done all of that, I've also produced work I didn't like. I've also been line producers on projects that were less satisfying. I've worked on pieces that absolutely bombed. I've been a hat maker. I've been a seamstress. And during all of those periods, I was still thinking about the creative goals that long-term I'd be able to do. They don't come all at once, but if you keep going and keep choosing things that do scratch those creative itches or help you build those skills, over time, you end up with really robust experience, right? So, thinking about the transferable skills that you have, some of the obvious things are, a lot of the time when we talk about the entertainment industry, we only think about film, right? So even within a film, there are lots of different divisions. We've got the people who are on the marketing side. We've got the people on the pre-production and development side. We've got production, post-production, distribution, promotion, as well as all of the really wide range of units that you find on set, right? Even on set, you may have people who are filming behind the scenes, as well as the core film itself. All of those people can also transfer those skills to television shows, and can transfer those same skills to web series, and short form video, music video, clips, right? So when we think about film skills, for you all entering the market, a place where a lot of people start are shorts. A lot of the time you're building your portfolio by working on online work. Advertising work, which is basically short films for promotional purposes, is something that every company needs. And being able to find those access points into agencies that are doing video production for advertising here in New Mexico is very much there. Advertising work tends to be consistent, shorter term, and often pay more than the same job on a film set. Also, if you are interested in building your portfolio, making friends with people who are making independent work here, or who are making work for the web here, gives you an opportunity to take the skills that you all are learning here, and in short sprints that are often easier to work in against other job and educational responsibilities, get your hands on production, right? This may not be as elaborate or as exciting as the sort of multi-camera shoots that you might be working on, but small budget pieces are increasingly the ways that directors, cinematographers, writers, and producers are making their names in the industry. And with the opportunity to present that work on YouTube, on TikTok, in short film festivals, and even with distributors like Dust is a great example, actually looking to acquire and distribute short form content in collections, there are all sorts of ways that short films are actually an exciting business proposition, especially as you're getting your start. Dust focuses on sci-fi genres. For those of you at home, I strongly recommend you check it out. So, thinking about your goal. Hairstyling, makeup, wardrobe, these are all things with a lot of transferable opportunities. What you know about hair absolutely is something that is critical in the entertainment industry and out. DPs know a lot about staging, and they know a lot about the way instruments work. Those skills are transferable to a lot of different mechanical opportunities, but also creative opportunities where the eye and the placement of people on set cross over. Location scouts, also relevant for events. When I'm looking for producers, event production experience is one of the things I look for most. Because if you've been involved with a conference where you have to organize 20 speakers with big egos while also getting yelled at and also setting up a stage, you know a lot about what it's going to take to stay sane on set and keep calm in the face of a crisis, whether or not it's an actual crisis, right? For each of you, think about the skills that the roles you're looking at are made up of, but also what skills from the rest of your life experience might come in handy or might give you another opportunity to think about a different position on set. These are the sort of things that I do all the time when I'm looking at projects on different platforms. What's someone who I know is really good in this way, who I met on this type of project, who might be exactly the person we need for this other project? And that sort of thing, the more you show it, the more you can communicate it, is also the thing that catches other people's eyes when they're hiring or thinking about the crew they want to build the next project with, right? I talk a lot. Feel free to ask questions and interrupt me. In this fantastic soundstage here at CNM, it's a little bit more distant, and with our social distance, I feel like I'm talking at you all. I definitely want to make sure that if you do have a question, you do raise your hand. And for those of you at home, if you have a question, feel free to type it into the chat. And if I'm not going to get to it in a later part of the presentation, I'll answer it right then. So thank you so much. There are a few ways that you can find jobs and find gigs in the entertainment industry. Some of these are more gig focused, others are more job seeking focused, and others are more career focused. Thinking about all of them and exploring them, based on your day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year priorities is part of the overall journey you're gonna have, finding the opportunities and projects you're looking for in the industry. So some of this may be information you know before, some of this may be information that has crossed your path before, but a lot of it is stuff that even for top-level professionals, we're always coming back to it. And I've been to a fair number of things like resume workshops with other people who have been producers for decades, because it never hurts to get reminded how to do this, especially if you've been working in a similar path for a while and want to change it up a little. So unions and guilds are a great place to start, especially for below the line. It's really critical to be able to find paths to explore, to build experience, and paths to have consistent and high quality teams on the work you're doing at high level. Job boards, everybody looks for jobs on job boards. There are a variety of ones that are good for the entertainment industry, local or further out. Film and local film boards. There are great ones in New Mexico, but more broadly as well. Online communities on social media or forums, word of mouth, and of course networking. And we're going to talk about all of these in a little bit more depth. If you're looking for work in New Mexico in the film industry, and you're not on the overflow list for the union, that should be the first thing you do after this session. Getting onto the union list is the best path in for below the line jobs. Making sure that you're on that list means you've got a path in to that work, but also if the union gets you started on the path to acceptance, the union is a tremendous place for ongoing education, for certifications that are critical to making sure that you have the experience necessary for simply existing on a set. And this last couple weeks have been especially hard for recognizing just the breadth of experience necessary to keep people safe on sets. Beyond IATSE, there are a huge range of unions and guilds in the entertainment industry that are going to have resources specific to your interests. Each one of these, some of them are co-signatories with IATSE, others are separate entities. Here are some. Here are some. Again, this deck, I'll bring up that QR code that allows you to access this deck after the fact, and all of these links will be in it for you to look at. But all of these groups are places where specific categories of professions within the entertainment industry collect, share information, present ongoing educational services and workshops and opportunities, and also work to collectively set the standards for the industry. The entertainment industry is one of the most unionized and collectivized industries in the United States. The opportunities to participate and enter those groups are fairly accessible in the United States, but it's also pretty critical to learn what each of them are doing, especially if it's your field of interest, because the best practices that they put out will be guidelines that are worth for you all entering the industry to really familiarize yourself with as much as possible, even if you aren't on a union shoot. So, talking a minute about safety. Of course, we are all reeling from the unfortunate events a few weeks ago on the set of Rust, where cinematographer Haley Hutchins was killed. There are all sorts of things that went wrong, and the investigations will uncover more and more of those. But one of the things that I want to focus on is, for all of you, The responsibility for safety on set, both yours and others, is every single person's responsibility. The same is true for networking events, and the same is true for your off hours. Understanding safety protocols on set is part of everyone's job description. And seeking out as much information as possible, and the unions and guilds are great places to start, about things that you may encounter on set, and bringing up questions about what it is that's going on if you don't understand it is helpful. Making sure you're choosing those moments to ask those questions is important, because you don't want to distract someone in a moment where they're doing something that is urgent for the safety of the wider group. But if you see unsafe behaviors, it's worth mentioning it. Films have firearms, they have car chases, they have explosions, but even on simple shoots that are not including those points, there's a lot of heavy equipment and a lot of ways that people can be injured. This is true for any work site, but knowing that film and entertainment industry work sites tend to pop up and then break down, and crews may be coming in and out on union or non-union sets, ensuring that when you see something, you say something, and that if you're concerned about something, you talk to someone on set who may have more experience than you, are really important parts of your job. This is also true for things like harassment. If you encounter people who are abusive, and this is true for everyone of any gender and anyone in any workplace, if people are acting in ways that seem unsafe or make people very uncomfortable, check with people. If you're concerned about the way someone was treated, it's worth talking to them about it. If it's something that you can tell automatically rises to the point that someone who is in a position of authority should know about it, it's important to make those conversations happen. And unfortunately, in the case of Rust, people had walked off set because they had seen things that were unsafe, and those cues seem to have not been respected. So if you see people with experience saying that something is unsafe, it's worth believing them. So, lots of opportunities, lots of specific areas where if you're curious, you can learn more, and it's worth looking at different practices and best practices that these different unions and guilds have established for use. Groups like the Producers Guild are not unions, but set best practices that they recommend producers sign on to. These groups are all working all the time to try and establish best practice and good behavior on sets, good behaviors in business, and to put those out in a way that other people who are entering the industry can reference and learn from. Whew. Local film boards are phenomenal. These are great ways to, these groups are great at making sure that you can understand what's going on in your area, what jobs are available in your area, and for me, I love looking at what events are going on. I don't just look at New Mexico. I look at Arizona, I look at Colorado, Texas, Oklahoma. They all have film boards too, and individual cities do as well. Las Cruces is absolutely killing it with their film board. Albuquerque is a tremendous resource. If you want to look as far as Tucson or Denver, there are also resources for people who want to work in those areas. Yes? That's a good one. I'm going to talk about those sort of non-local boards in a second. But these are great places not just for job listings, but to find things that are highly relevant to the industry where you live. Events, conferences, educational opportunities, and if you are interested in something that they're not presenting something for, you too can talk to them and potentially start that conversation. Either volunteering to do some of the work to set up an event or to help to plan something that they would then take forward. But it's their job to support the local teams as well as the businesses that are coming to these areas. So if there's a great cinematography lecture, wonderful. If you would like to hear more about cinematography and are willing to do some of the legwork to produce a panel or produce an event, these are great places to start looking for funding and a community of people who live near you with similar interests. You with me so far? Job boards. So in any conversation about finding jobs, we talk about LinkedIn. We talk about Staff Me Up, Backstage. Different guilds and unions have their own job boards. Indeed, HollyList, Media Match. There are a huge range of boards to look at, and new ones coming on every time. There are some that are highly specific. There are others that are more broad. If you're looking for advertising work, you will probably look at Indeed or LinkedIn. If you're looking for film, the film boards, the unions, the very specific film-oriented places are the place to look. If you're looking for something that's a portfolio piece, you might be talking about a local college listserv, either here at CNM or more broadly looking to other community colleges and film programs where you know there are other students who are looking for collaboration opportunities. Once you know there's a job that fits your interest, then you can start making your own proposal to that job with a resume, cover letter, and more, that you're the right fit for it. The other place that it's worth looking into, regardless of your sort of appetite and interest in social media platforms, is online communities. And when I say social media platforms, there are the usual suspects of Facebook and Twitter, but also Discord groups. There are also website forums. And there are places where people who are emerging cinematographers from around the world are sharing their insights, their interests, and you should be looking for things that interest you at the same time. Building those friendships and connections in online communities is another way to start building the network of people who you're going to want to collaborate with, who you're going to have a great interest in building projects with over time. So, the other thing about all of this is kind of a big quantity of opportunity, and it can be discouraging going into it and maybe not finding the right groups for you immediately. Or the way so many people talk about all the time, especially now in 2021, putting out a lot of applications for positions and not getting any responses. The entertainment industry has always been a cruel mistress, and it's only every other industry that's going into the same mechanisms that makes us feel like a very safe bet, right? So one should expect that you're going to put a lot of hooks out there into the water. Sometimes you'll choose not to pursue something because, wow, this comment thread is toxic, or this just doesn't feel as interesting as I thought it was. And that may be a function of the community, or the job listing, or the job board, and it may just be you figuring out your interests. The big thing here is figuring out a way to consistently do this research and outreach for yourself that's sustainable for you. I'm not going to be the person who tells you you should be applying to 50 jobs every week. I'm not the person who's going to tell you you have to be on every social media platform to be potentially discovered. What I am going to do is present a bunch of ideas of things that may be good fits or opportunities for you to find these paths, and you're going to decide which ones you take. At different times in my life, I've been more interested in seeking out more opportunities, and at other times, I just don't want to go to an in-person event. I'm not feeling social. I'm not interested the same way I was when I signed up for it a few months ago. These are all valid feelings, and the trick is to keep going. You'll probably feel more social in a couple weeks. You'll have more of a curiosity about this kind of project, maybe later on, and you can come back to it. But again, it's that difference between our short-term goals and our long-term career. Keep at it. Return to your practice of search and your practice of outreach when you can, and over time, it will build towards more and more opportunities. Word of mouth. So one of the reasons I made every single one of you introduce yourself is the people in this room are the people you're going to start with most immediately. You've got a really complementary set of skills, right? So if you're on a project and you're looking for a location manager, or you're working with a independent artist on this advertising piece, and you know Kira back there, and they need a hairdresser, make the referral. It's up to Kira to be excellent, and I have every faith in you. But making the referral to someone you know helps people out. This guy up here, Steele Philippek, he's a long-term collaborator of mine. He's also the second person I met in my first class in college. We started working together in school, and we've worked on a bunch of independent projects together. I've brought him into for-hire projects. He just released a comic book and 2 podcasts. He's incredibly talented. If you like horror comics, check out Arcane. But the same way, other people I've met and worked with over time have noticed there was a hole in a project that needed a Caitlin-shaped person. So they made a recommendation. It wasn't the only recommendation for that role. I had to, show up and be excellent and present myself and get the job. But if you're building projects, especially independently, making sure you're making introductions, and hopefully people will make introductions back to you based on the quality of your work. Not everyone does this. Not everyone comes through, but it's not an indication that the process is wrong, right? So again, this is something that over time, you prove yourself on projects, people get to know you better, more people know you, more people want to hire you, right? And networking. So as these people in this stock photo are showing, networking can actually be really, really fun. Networking, feels a little weird to say. It's a very management practice term for making friends, seeking out your interests, and finding other people with similar interests and complementary needs, right? And this is, again, a practice over time of getting to know people who have similar goals and work on projects that interest you or you'd like to work on, or you've worked with and you've enjoyed working together or really loved the outcomes. How do you get started? The same way we've talked about with other pieces, start with the things that interest you. Maybe it's a cinematography panel at the New Mexico Films events. Maybe it's a panel at Comic-Con. I met someone who I've worked with at a contest for an anime voiceover, American Idol style, in the audience. Neither one of us even got to audition, but we made a friendship that's persisted for a long time, and we've worked together on different projects at different times. The more you seek out these opportunities to, increase your own skills or learn about something that interests you, and the more you talk to people, the more you'll find connections that can yield more opportunities. It should be fun. You should like the people that you choose to connect with. And if you have networking mixers or industry mixers, it's one of those places where everyone's there both to meet new people, but also to network, to find those opportunities that's going to benefit everyone's projects and careers. So if you're going to a networking mixer, people are there to introduce themselves and potentially find partners for projects or employees or people they can hire. Anytime I go to a major event, my goal is to try and meet 2 people, not find a job, not figure out the answer to my career challenges, but meet 2 people who might be interesting conversation friends, interesting projects that I want to follow, or potential opportunities for me to collaborate with. It's a pretty minimum goal, and it means I've given myself permission and a goal to go and talk to people who I wouldn't otherwise. Despite the fact that I'm talking to all of you in public, in this room and on the internet, I'm secretly very shy. I've had to get really practiced with myself to put myself out there, especially in a room of strangers, and be willing to start conversations. For me, setting these goals is helpful. If I go to one of these events with someone who is a buddy of mine, it can be helpful too. You know, if you have other friends with similar interests and you both want to go to this panel or this event, it can help to have a wingman. That said, you both have to agree that you're going to talk to new people too, right? And if no one's creating events to network and meet up and mingle about the things that are interested in you, and you're interested in, you can be the person that creates that event. One of the things that I used to do was create events about sort of new media and film. And what we would do is we'd pick a bar or pick a restaurant and pick a time, and we'd all show up there. And we'd put it on the internet, and more people would show up. If you are putting together something with, you know, that idea in mind that's trying to attract people, well, you're going to know everyone in that room too. It's not for everyone, but these events don't have to be South by Southwest or sell out the Las Vegas Convention Center. They can also be an opportunity for people who are working on independent features to just get together and have a good time and maybe talk about their projects. All of this is to say, figure out what's appealing to you. Figure out what is interesting to you, and figure out ways you can invite other people who might be interested to connect with you. And that does ultimately lead to more opportunities. Other great opportunities for networking, skill building, and building career is conferences and festivals. They don't have to be those places, but most festivals, especially the larger ones, and most conferences have opportunities for students and emerging creators that are worth checking out. Most of these groups also are always looking for volunteers. So for a volunteer, you may get full access if you're willing and have the ability to spend some time working as an usher or helping to do part of the production. And for all of you who have done work on sets, for all of you who are working on sets in your student work, you have a baseline understanding of the choreography that that's going to take, right? So festivals, conferences, they also have year-round programs like fellowships that if you have a piece that you might want to make or an idea that you might want to turn into something larger, you should consider submitting. If you are working on student work and you have a short or a documentary or a student film that you feel particularly proud of, it's also worth submitting. Many film festivals and programs have a significant mandate for showcasing emerging work. And programs where those creators who do get selected are then put into networking situations with established filmmakers, with established creators, and get to be with a group of others selected from all over the country or even all over the world to go in and discuss the work and share and learn, right? These are absolutely open to everyone in this room and everyone watching at home. Learn about them, check them out. Some of them may be for you, some of them won't be, but it is an opportunity that every one of you can access. Finally, if something doesn't feel right, don't do it. Don't push yourself past that edge of what feels like something you want to do. Like, there is a feeling of pushing yourself outside your comfort zone and doing something that's maybe a little hard, and there's a feeling that's like, everything in my body is rejecting this. There are lots of other ways you can walk your path towards your career, but you want to try it before you've totally confirmed that it's not for you. You want to make sure you're checking in with yourself and saying, this is something that I've never done before, and that's intimidating, versus this is something that just doesn't feel like a good fit. And none of the things like, it's easier to figure that out in time. The more experience you get trying things, the more you'll be able to make that distinction. Give it at least one opportunity wholeheartedly to try going to that kind of event, to apply to this thing, and maybe you don't get in, but you understand it better. And maybe your intimidation is, I don't want to write all of this paperwork, but I would really love to be part of that opportunity. And maybe one of your collaborators would want to help you with that. Maybe the next time you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, this was really hard the first time, but it's easier the second time, and I'm going to reapply. Take a look at it. If you keep getting those cues that, you know, this really isn't the thing I want to do, or this isn't the path I want to take, absolutely valid. But give yourself the opportunity to get past that intimidation and maybe find something that you have a real skill for that you had to build. So, lots of opportunities for conferences and events, lots of people here in this room who you can talk with and potentially say, what if we all put together a short film? Lots of people on the call who might be able to find people in your sphere and say, what if we spent this weekend trying to make something that would be part of our portfolios and our reels? And also, look at the credits of films. Look at pieces you really admire. Lots of people are findable. If you really love someone's work or you have a question for them, reach out. Reach out on social media. And, you know, we used to say reach out on email. Emails are much harder to find now, and it's weirder. But, you know, if someone's on Twitter, they're on Twitter to communicate. So if you really adored the cinematography of that film and had a question about how it was accomplished, reach out and ask. Or if you have someone who you see has directed every single one of these festival videos that you've adored, reach out to that director and ask, you know, what's your recommendation for someone getting into the industry? How do I connect with this kind of work? Most of the time, the worst case scenario is someone doesn't respond. Most of the time, people are busy and they, you know, aren't prioritizing responding to every message that they're getting from that's coming in cold. But a lot of people do respond. 6 months down the road, you might actually get a response from someone that leads to something that's really interesting. So again, think about a practice that is comfortable for you and see who would you like to connect with. It may or may not work, but it also gives you the opportunity to study towards that career goal. So what is it that I really want to do? What's the language of it that I'm getting from my education? And where am I seeing that applied beautifully? And the more of those things that you know, the more you're seeing, the more you can talk about, the more interesting it'll be when you do go to those events and make connections with people directly, because you'll have more and more to talk about, right? Okay, where are we at for time? All right. I'm going to try and run through this next part into a break that we're going to do in about 15 minutes. And some of this will probably feel familiar. But what will you need to show your work off? Let's say you went to that amazing panel at the New Mexico Film Conference, and you met some people who are really excited to talk to you about your work, and what comes next? You've connected with them, you've had a good, you know, initial conversation, you followed up. What are you following up with? For a job listing, you're going to have a resume, and you're going to have a listing of credits somewhere. If you are talking about one of the more visual components of your work, you will probably have a reel or a portfolio that you'll want to share. Some of this might be high-level work that you've done professionally. Other parts will be photos or clips from student work that you've worked on. The idea is to show the range of your skills and how you apply those skills. So let's talk about each one of these things and sort of what are your goals. The macro goal for all of these is to figure out how to communicate your skills and your interests to an audience. Networking, word of mouth, conversations are kind of easy in a way because your audience is 100% human. Human-to-human interaction. It's something we're all good at, we can all get better at, everybody's improving their whole lives, but human audiences. When we're talking about resumes, we're talking about human audiences and robot audiences. Because once upon a time, Humans were the ones doing the sorting of resumes. Today, software systems do the initial sort of resumes. This is a problem that anyone who is a drunk HR person will talk about at great length. Because not only is it difficult for people seeking jobs to find the fit for the right role, but people who are listing jobs may not be able to find the right people for the role. A lot of work comes from referrals from people in companies or on crews, and may or may not come from the job sites themselves. But when you're writing a resume, this is a list of things that show you have the experience necessary to do this job. It's the basic stats that show I can do this, right? And the more you convey clearly and quickly about the skill set you have that applies to that job, to your audience, the more likely it is that you'll get to the next step, which is a human interview, where, again, once you're talking to humans, it gets easier again. So, how do you think about these documents? Even once resumes have been sorted, you're talking about someone who's looking at hundreds of resumes a day. Think about how long it takes you to read something, analyze it, and sort it. And then make a smart decision about it, right? So your goal is to try and make this easy to understand and really clear to someone who has a very limited amount of time to get to know you, right? So part of that is, how can I make it super clear what the information is relevant to this job description? And usually you'll have multiple resumes for different sets of skills. For someone who's looking at cinematography, you might have a cinematographer resume and a DP resume and a camera operator resume and another one over here that's for simply working with the materials and the electrics and the systems, right? Because the job may be looking for different types of skills. In the job descriptions, you'll want to find keywords. And these are terms that are specifically referencing a skill or a feature or a technique that they want you to be familiar with. And those are things that you're going to want to call out exactly in your resume. Different resumes do this in different ways. Some, in the case of this one, is looking at different production experiences by the title of that work, right? Others, you may have a job listing where, let's say you worked for this company and you were DP and you worked on these projects. Each of these listings, whether it's a project, you want to break it down into the skills that you had or the things that you did. Again, because it's easy to reference, it's easy to scan, it's easy to understand why you're arguing that you're the best fit for this job. In others, you might choose to go by job description or credit and list every single one of those things where you had that credit or you fit that job description. This changes based on the amount of experience that you can list on your resume and the style. I've seen producers who have 30 credits and just list a producer last 10 years of credits on their resume because it's clear that that line production experience is really robust and everyone can recognize those TV show names, right? Others need to explain their job a little bit more. As someone who's been a transmedia producer, I've had to explain both of those words more times than I can count. That said, when we break it down, we're looking for a single page in a resume. We're looking for keywords that relate to the job description. And the highlights section here, for those of you in the back of the room, it's the third one down, those bullet points, is a really helpful thing to include on your resume, because that's a great place for you to put the major points and keywords, both for a human person to reference, but also for the system that's going to be determining, are the keywords matching between this submission and the job description that I'm sorting for. You're going to want to make sure that you include relevant job experience, and this is really pretty key. If you have 3 director of photography credits and 1 location manager credit, you're going to want to focus on the DP credits if you're going for a DP job. relevant licenses and certs. If you have specific certifications or licenses that are applicable to what you're doing, definitely include them. If again, it's a certification for like search engine optimization and not something that's relevant to the job description for an on-set job, feel free to leave it off. You will want to include your education, because that's something that is also a criteria that can be sorted in and out. And you'll want to include your contact info. Some of the things that people will look for when they're looking at your contact info are like, is this person local to the shoot we're doing? Generally, people aren't going to be mailing you based on your resume these days. But it is still relevant, especially if you're looking at local work like crew work. If you have your cell phone, it's good. If you have an email where you're contactable, it's good. Sometimes you'll also put your portfolio website, or you'll put a professionally focused public social media account. We're going to talk about those in just a minute. But the idea is, where are you findable, where are you showcasing your work, and how can we get in touch with you? Make sense? Awesome. Oh, definitely not least. People are looking through hundreds of these files a day, and they all look nearly identical. Like, you can see from these 3 examples that they all look really similar, yeah? So make sure that your file name is also your name. These details count. If it's titled resume, it's going to get lost. It's not helping the person who needs to find you, because they really need to hire you for this role. Make sure they're finding you and that you are findable, right? So, the other place where you're going to want to think about creating resumes is LinkedIn, especially if you're looking at being findable for professional positions. And across platforms, it's really handy to have. If you're following up with someone about a job, if you can send them directly to your LinkedIn to connect, it means they have a direct access point to all of that crediting information, all of those skills that you want to show off. The same information that you're going to want to include on your resume, you can put into a LinkedIn site, as well as things like portfolio pieces and a broader spectrum of skills, because someone who's hiring for a specific role on set might, in 2 weeks, be hiring for another role that's similar to your set of skills. They've seen it, they know you did great on this, you'll probably do great on that too. This is an area where, for me, I made a conscious choice to make myself findable professionally on LinkedIn. It's a good place for me personally to be able to connect on a professional level. It's also a place where a lot of other people have similar desire to connect on a professional level. So if you're thinking of, I want to connect with this person whose work I really admire, or who I saw on a panel, LinkedIn is a good place to start. You don't have to have everything on every platform, but if you have at least one place where you're visible, where you're easy to contact, and where your work experience is presented well, it helps a lot in your networking and in your overall goals in being able to show your work off effectively. So, Reels. I'm going to try and show a video, so bear with me. When we're thinking about presenting film work, it's really handy to be able to show off your work and its breadth. So, I'm going to show you a reel that was for a company I built that did data visualization and virtual reality. In this instance, we were dealing with volumetric capture, camera capture, and digital animations rendered in different ways. We wanted to show off the range of skills, and we wanted to give a feel of what the end product felt like. When you look at these, you see generative animation, you see how it looks online, because this is virtual reality accessible from the web. It showed actual case studies of projects we'd built and their features. And usually you don't want your reel to go more than 60 or 90 seconds. The same way you may have multiple resumes for multiple job descriptions, If you're doing a lot of video work, you may have one that's focused on advertising, or you may have one that's focused on editing. You may have another one that's focused on sound. You want to be able to show the work in a way that's comprehensible as itself. And you want to, again, hit the highlights. Yeah. So I see that this is lagging a bit for you all on Zoom. Just going to go back to our presentation now. So if you were to be describing your work to someone, what would be the 3 main things that you are trying to focus on? Think about your own skills. Think about the areas where you feel strongest and that you would most want to work. And write those down for yourself now. What are 3 skills that I can think of, top of my mind, where I'm really good? And think about what you'd want to communicate to someone else who was trying to hire you. Where are your biggest strengths? Are they framing a shot? Is it talking to actors? Is it helping people stay organized? Is it making sure that everything is in its place? Do you have a particular interest in one kind of work versus another? These are exercises that we do all the time. And when we're thinking about scripting our own reels, we're thinking about career goal, and we're breaking it down into headlines. So sometimes you might break it down by position. Other times, you might break it down by focus, planning, creative, distribution, depending on what it is that's really special about the work that you've done, or that is most interesting to you about the work you've done. Scripting any video is also considering the audience. What are the range of jobs I'm going to apply for? And what are people going to want to review for that full range of positions? Is it going to be camera work? Is it going to be sound mixing? Is it going to be Foley? Think about where you can show off each of those points. And often, if you have something in mind that would show that off really well, you can take a minute and make that video. We all have cameras in our pockets now. And while we want to have the most high quality and high definition version of it, if you can show something off really well using those tools, honestly, most people are going to review it on one of these or on a laptop computer. If someone's reviewing a reel that's focused on high definition work, they might review it on a high definition machine. But thinking about who's going to watch it, where they're going to watch it, these are all things that go into your mind when you're putting together a reel. Finally, portfolios and websites. These are fun, but these are also tough. This is another one where I definitely feel like it's like the cobbler with no shoes. The work that you're doing on your projects often will be more exciting and more interesting than the way you present it. But being able to have one place where you can show off the breadth of your skills is a really important way to show to the people who might work with you, especially when you're going from individual creator to maybe company or crew that you're all working together to find jobs at. Most production companies will have a portfolio website. For you all as creators, it's helpful to show, you've got your sound work here, you've got your video work here, you've got your makeup work over here. It's all you. It's a one-stop shop. It's easy for someone who you're getting to know and who's getting to know you to find that information. And you can show it off in full multimedia beauty, video, photos. You have control of it. Again, another way to be findable, regardless of your interest in being on social media. So a component of this is also looking at the case studies that you want to show on each of these points. So I'm going to share a quick video with you all that is a case study of a piece I did that's themed entertainment, so a physical environment. I know, the transition to video is always the most exciting part of a presentation. Okay. So this piece, we have our goal, we have the outcome, and now we're showing off all of the different aspects of the work that went into the full experience. It was a physical location. We used fog, we used video, we used sound. We created turf that simulated permafrost. We created wind and scent environments that brought different aspects of the experience to life. We wanted to make sure we communicated different aspects of the construction that went into it. All of it is focusing on audience reaction because that's such an important part of a physical experience. In film, you don't often see the audience reaction the same way. So when you're talking about a theme or themed entertainment or attraction, you want to make sure you're showing that people actually did enjoy it. Our goal is, again, creating memories. Then, as you go through the piece, you go from introduction, how it was made, and finally outcomes. So you see we've got statistics. On any projects that you work on, it's good to know how many people viewed it, where it was viewed, how often it was viewed. Keep track of your projects and keep track of that information for yourself, but also so you can talk about it. And then things like, if you are doing a screening, it's worth getting sound bites from people who were there. It's worth making sure that you take a record of what people said about it on social media. If people talk about a piece that you worked on in the press, it's worth keeping a record of that for yourself as well, saving a PDF or a screenshot of it. And finally, first moments are important, and so are last moments. So where are you leaving someone off? What information are they leaving with based on what you've built? And for all of you currently working in a film program that's designed around understanding how to communicate these ideas creatively, really use the same skills that you're building in your production classes, in your development classes, and think about how you can showcase your own work as a topic. All right. This is the last bit before we take a break, I promise. Social media can be a really great place to network. It can be a great place to meet new people. It can also be a quagmire. There's a lot of information out there about how different social media environments, are addictive or cause different issues that you may not want to seek out. Some of them just don't feel right to people for different reasons. As with all of these opportunities, making choices around what feels good for you and what fits for you is part of deciding how you're going to present yourself on social media. Social media is a great place to give people a deeper sense of your personality and a great place to find you. Facebook is the second largest search engine after Google. So LinkedIn, we talked about a little bit. It's a professional network. Everyone on it is there for professional networking, right? So it's a great place to have a resume and a portfolio because it is easily searchable and you're able to find people who are looking to hire people and people who are looking for professional connections can find you there, right? Instagram, if you're a photographer, if you are a videographer, if you're thinking about visual video work, it's a great place to show off your skills, either casually or professionally. The same is true for TikTok to a certain degree, though the format's less flexible for you to show off your work. If you're on TikTok, if you have a public account there, it's worth thinking about how you can show off your different skills in the content that people are seeing of you there. Increasingly, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube are places where people will look for people's video portfolios. They'll be looking to see a body of work that's showcasing your skills, especially if you want to create new films, new shorts, or go for those roles where your eye and your creative development are so critical. It's a place to develop and experiment. It's also a great place to put out experiments or side projects where you're working with others. It may not be a full professional experience, but show off. If you've done something you're proud of, make sure it's findable for people who want to find new work and emerging artists. Facebook is a great place for groups and communities. There's a lot of sharing and exchanging information about jobs, questions, local issues, but also interest groups. Twitter is a great place for conversation. It's very easy to start a conversation on Twitter with someone and have that conversation with someone at a whole variety of prestige levels for good and ill. It's a great place to connect with someone in a pleasant way. It also can be pretty hectic in terms of where people are, acting badly with people who are public figures who have a public venue on Twitter. Again, some of these platforms you may choose to make professional. For me, LinkedIn is a professional site for me. For me, Instagram is solely for cats and kid pictures. So I don't make myself findable on Instagram. Each one of you is going to be looking at these platforms and making your own choices about the fitness of it for your work. These are all great options. And one I left out that is a really interesting one for sound work, but also for events, is Clubhouse. Clubhouse is kind of new and hot and smaller, but that also means that there are fewer people there. There are great events on Clubhouse for different interest groups. There's one I love called the Story Hour that's every Thursday at noon Pacific, that's executives in the entertainment industry talking about new technologies. And the way that Clubhouse works is you're in a room, there are presenters, it's kind of like a panel, but also people from the audience are invited to be part of the broadcast conversation. It's a little bit like radio, it's a little like being in a panel event, but it's another place that it's worth experimenting with. It's worth seeing if this fits for you. Again, you don't know until you try. It's worth taking a look at all of it and experimenting to determine whether this is a successful or a less appealing place for you to be doing this outreach. And I hope you all take a moment to reach out to me. So we've talked about finding jobs. We've talked about presenting yourself in different job-seeking environments. After our break, we're going to go a little bit deeper into pitching, networking, and then we'll have some pretty open conversation towards the end of our session for you all to ask questions, both at home and in the room. And I'm looking forward to it. So, break time. Again, for those of you who have joined us late, this QR code, if you scan it, you can get this deck at home.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. We'll be coming back at 3:35, 10 minutes.
Sounds
from our break
great.
for part 2 of Caitlin Burns' How to Get a Job in the Film and Media Industry. Thank you. Let's come out of the break and let me know when we're live.
All right.
We're unmuted.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. I'm Tim Forrest, the director of the CNM Film Program. Welcome to part 2 of Caitlin Burns' How to Get a Job in Film and Media. Caitlin was just talking, comparing Comic-Con to...
Film festivals and other conferences, yeah. In our last session, we talked a lot about where are people going to meet people with similar interests, and where are they having conversations that lead to opportunities. So one of the big career goals you're going to have is to find a network of people who are like-minded, who are going to direct your work your way, who you can direct work their way, who ultimately you want to work with. And a big part of building that network is getting out there, exploring things that you actively like or are interested in, and meeting people in those places to make friends. You're not going out there and it's like a Terminator robot with only a program to find a job. It's making friends with people who share your interests, who have similar interests in the industry, who ultimately, short-term or long-term, may have an opportunity to send your way. But I love Comic-Cons because they are a place where people in the industry, decision makers, strong creators, are specifically going to meet with audience members. So there's a different degree of access. Now, at different points in film festivals or Comic-Cons, there are different times where you're going to meet people. Mixers, parties, events that are around these sessions, like conferences, are usually built with networking opportunities in them. Sometimes with cocktails, sometimes lunches. South by Southwest, has a huge range of them that are all over tacos, which is just right up my alley. But looking for the opportunities in those places to meet people and start genuine conversations based on mutual interest. So for those of you joining us at home, and for those of you in the room, this QR code and this URL will take you directly to the deck for this presentation. So if you're taking notes, or if you want to look at something that I've presented later, all of the links that are on here are hyperlinked in that remote deck. And for those of you viewing the recording at home, I'll keep this live. So if it's after the live stream event, this should still be available for you to check out, course notes against this live recording. So in our first session, we talked about places to find jobs and the different tools you're going to use to present yourself in the quest for those jobs. In the second half of our conversation, we're going to talk about networking, and we're going to talk about pitching. This is the human-to-human communication of your work and also communication of projects. So we've talked a little bit about job descriptions and job roles and individual roles on set, but we're also going to talk about creative work that you have developed and how you might want to talk about that work. It's great, both because everyone in this room has it in them to create a story and a piece of film, a video, a short film that would inspire someone else. And the more you experiment with it and the more you can show, the more will be in your reel, but also the more you may find that you love that part of the process. And for many people, starting below the line, finding their way to making projects, putting out the full piece, and finding their path into production or direction or screenwriting is a career path. And all of it's open to anyone, anywhere. It's just a matter of putting in work and time and putting it out there. So it's also much easier to think about pitching a project sometimes than it is pitching your personal skills. And the only way to get better at introductions and pitching and talking about yourself is practice. So sometimes when I'm feeling completely unable to write a biography about myself or summarize that really long list of things we talked about that I'd worked on, I'll take a break and I'll look at a project I'm working on or I want to make, and that's what I'll spend time trying to make more brief, to make more elegant, to think about how I'm going to communicate that to other people. And sometimes that helps my brain click back over to, okay, now I've got to talk about me. So, Wally, who are you? This is a question that, it's a biggie. It's one of the big questions. But it's one that the part of the pitching and networking process is doing the self-evaluation. What are your strengths? What are the skills that you want to build? What are your actual interests? Are you interested in this because you're interested in it or because you think you should be interested in it? And that's part of the exploration that you're going to go through throughout your career. At different times, some of that may be true or false. Everyone is always evolving. But as you're going into a job search or going into a sort of new field or new interest, you want to take a minute to check in. And this is an opportunity, again, we talked about 3 strengths in our last exercise. I want you each to think about 3 interests that you'd like to pursue. These could be skill-based. These could be, I want to spend more time watching horror movies. But I want you to think about 3 areas where you'd like to spend time seeking out events where other people might be with similar interests. Go ahead and write those down for yourself. For those of you in the audience at home, you're welcome to share some of these insights in the chat, and we'll look at them. Again, for those of you just joining us, if you have any questions who are watching on the remote view, definitely feel free to put them into the chat, and I will answer them. Towards the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A session, so if you have any of them from either of the sessions, feel free to hold them in reserve for that as well. We want to make sure that, it's easy to sort of go through the motions. But when you can tap into those deeper passions, those real, sincere interests, that's when you're most likely to find very exciting opportunities. When we're thinking about how we're going to network, the first thing you should be thinking about is, what would I be interested in? And based on your interests, start researching what's out there. Reading entertainment papers like Deadline or Variety, getting subscribed to the New Mexico Film Board newsletters are going to help you keep up with what's going on locally and what's going on in the industry as a whole. There are other publications where you might be able to follow more about web video or web series, if that's an interest, live streaming, different types of content that relates to different genres, like Filmmaker is better for documentaries. The Sundance Film Festival has incredible resources for aspiring filmmakers, and they're constantly updating with new industry features based on new insights and what's coming out each year. The No Film School website has great programs, great videos, and regular events and talking points. There may be a Discord forum for the interest that you have. There may be a Facebook group for a particular interest. But it's everyone's job to seek out the information that's going to help you pursue those interests. And it's everyone's job to figure out how to do that in the way that's best for you. Figuring out a moment where you're regularly checking in and learning about what's going on that relates to the job you want, that relates to the industry you're in, and relates to the area where you're seeking out this work, it's a process that you want a good set of habits to build for yourself. All of it ultimately is going to be curated by, I'm actually interested in this. I want to read about this every day or every week, and I'm less interested in that. So it's a process that you're going to create your own garden of information, your own garden of leads for opportunities, and seek out opportunities, events, and moments where you can do steady outreach that works for you. Back before the pandemic, I had a goal of going to one event a month about something that I would be interested in and trying to meet those two people there. That made sense then. It doesn't make sense the same way now. I actually find it a little bit harder to go to a virtual event than I do a physical event because the amount of effort it takes to, get dressed and think about it and go out to it. So I'm doing less direct event outreach. I'm doing fewer of those. But it's still a practice that I look forward to resuming. I still want to make sure that I'm connecting with new people and learning new things at events in a steady schedule. And again, these are goals. You'll make goals for yourself. And try to be forgiving of yourself if you don't hit your own goals. Because at different times in your life, you'll be more inclined towards reaching out in some ways and less inclined to others, and that's going to change over time. So, thinking about your gig versus your job versus your career. You're thinking about your interests. The next exercise I want for each of you to do is think about 3 things that are blocking you from going further. 3 things where I need to learn about this, or I don't have this certification yet, or I need to find more projects for my reel to show my experience or to gain that experience. And again, take a minute to think about these and write them down. And once you've got those written down, the goal is to use these 3 points to think about, okay, how can I, what is it that I need to do next? What do I need to do to find those projects? Do I need to make a project that'll help me do this? And maybe everyone else in this room with all of your complementary skills can help me make that project. Maybe I'm really interested in storytelling, and I'd really love to make a podcast. Who would benefit from the podcast that I'm making, right? So who could I work with who might be interested in developing this skill for sound design and sound mixing in a way that I could create a project? I've got to spend my time building up this piece. Is there someone who could help me with that or benefit from that time I'm volunteering? And maybe it's a local newspaper, or maybe it's a local institution and a great story that you could showcase. Sometimes those turn into jobs and further work. So does anyone want to share a strength or a challenge? All right, people in the audience, or people in the audience at home, come up to the mic and share one challenge or one strength that you think that you can think of, and something you might do in a response to it. What would be the next step you would take? Kenny, I saw you moving. Come on, come on up. All right, so are you going to share a blocker or a strength?
A strength.
Okay.
A strength for me is meeting new people.
Awesome.
And working with them.
Yeah.
Finding something in common
Yeah.
with the new person that I met, and then exploring that new subject.
Awesome. So what's something that you could do that builds off that strength that's going to help you towards a future goal?
Well, I guess, like you were saying, attending events, and you said meet 2 people.
Right.
Set a goal to meet 2 new people at an event, and then stay in contact with them.
Awesome. Where do you think you're going to, just going to keep you on the spot. Where do you think you're going to start looking for events?
A film festival, I think, would be
Awesome.
a great start.
Totally.
You mentioned Comic-Con. I never, ever would have thought to do something like that. I know
Yeah.
Drew just recently did the one in Santa Fe and was telling me all about it, and I was like, wow, that sounds a lot of fun. Not
Yeah.
something that I have much of an interest in, but it sounds really cool, and I'm always down to try something new.
Awesome. I think Santa Fe Comic-Con runs through this weekend as well, which is a great time for costumes. The Halloween Comic-Con, perfect. But Comic-Cons usually have great industry panels, and especially with so many comic book films and movies coming out, you get great decision makers and fabulous creators there. And again, Comic-Cons are built for people to engage directly with audiences. One point about Comic-Cons also, when you're at a conference or a festival or a Comic-Con, you want to read that room. There are some times where it's a panel where the panelists will speak, then there'll be some questions and answers, and maybe there's an opportunity at the end of that to introduce yourself to the panelists and make a quick connection and ask a question and then follow up. Other times, like the CCO of DC, Jim Lee, might be in an autograph line, and that is very specifically not the moment to pitch your film idea. A lot of people who are at those panels and conferences also have specific legal parameters around when or how they can take new ideas from people. It's weird, but it's the way it is. So looking at the situation, is this a moment where it's a good moment to approach? How should I approach? And is this a setup, and is there another time where there's a specific moment where I could do this? So again, conferences, cons, festivals, often they'll have mixers, or they'll have panels, or opportunities specifically for people to pitch or for emerging creators. It's very much in the mandate of most film festivals to have these moments where creators and emerging creators can connect with more established professionals. Some of those are public for all attendees, others are for the selections in the festival that year. Looking at the events that are coming up, you may be surprised to find something that is exactly perfect for your interests. But you've got to do the legwork to find it. Seeking out the festivals, getting on their lists, and looking it up is a really important part of any practice for building the long-term networking and job opportunity processes. Quick show of hands. The listing for this showed Caitlin Burns, producer. Did any of you look me up before you came into the room? No. Pretty normal, pretty cool. But it's also not unusual to do a little bit of research on the people who are talking on a program, whether it's this workshop or others. I mean, one, it helps you determine amongst the thousands of global things that you could do at any given moment, which ones are most interesting to you. But for you all, figuring out who you want to meet, who is interesting in your field, who is interesting in specific roles, and who might be the people who are hiring you for work, does involve a little bit of legwork. There's sort of a weird vanity that we talk about when we're talking about presenting yourself. And I think for me, it took me a while to get over the feeling like, okay, talking about myself, presenting myself in these ways, feels kind of vain. But it's not super vain, and it's not super intrusive. It's not beyond the norm to look someone up in the ways they're presenting themselves publicly, or to provide information about yourself in a way that's accessible and clear. And especially for creators, you want to use all of those tools to communicate who you are in the way you're presenting yourself. Comedians I know have some of the funniest bios that I've ever read. Filmmakers and editors who are presenting their reels often really take the time to show beautiful work in the style and the presentation of their reels. Motion graphics artists, graphic designers that are showcasing their talent and creativity in the way that they're presenting their work are immediately standing out against people who are showing more standardized templates of that same work, right? So thinking about how you can use the skills you're building to present yourself clearly is definitely a goal if you're looking for people who would want to work with you, who would want to hire you. Help them see how cool your work can be. We were talking about Comic-Cons, we were talking about networking, we were talking about the philosophical struggle with vanity in discussing our personal work. Let's talk about what it is that you're going to want to communicate. And while we're going to go back to talk about reels and portfolios and job descriptions and resumes throughout all of this, when we're talking about the pitch, we're talking about the direct communication with a human audience member, usually one-on-one or in a small group, of your skills, your projects, or your business. For individuals, your business and your skills are probably the same thing, but over time, you may find groups of people that you want to build a production company with, where you're working with one another enough that it makes sense to connect and share the work of seeking out the work, administrating the work, billing, all of that stuff. It's a natural progression as you work as a crew. Similarly, if you want to do work for advertising, this is really important and skills you absolutely are building to help other people present their work effectively. In case studies like the Arctic Refuge Project video we saw, or in bigger presentations like websites, or the way that you're going to communicate your work to clients in a direct pitch. So skills. when we're talking about a pitch, those 3 big goals. What are your headlines? What are the 3 major things you are great at as a person working in this field? What is defining your interest? There may be lots of people who have the exact same skills and the same number of credits on a crew, but how you are communicating it directly to someone will often be the thing that helps distinguish you from them. We talked about applying for a job, sending through the resume, and meeting the human interviewer. This is where that starts being important. Being able to communicate sort of what drives you, what those interests are, and why these skills you're building make sense. So one of the folks who isn't joining us for the second half of this session talked about, I got into the film industry because someone I admired really inspired me to pursue this work. That's a great start for a conversation. The same way we talked about our Inigo Montoya, hello, name, personal greeting. These are the hooks that get people's attention and start conversations. And when someone is meeting you, when you are pitching, you're pitching a few different things. I'll talk about that in a second. So, who are you? What are your strengths? What are your interests? You're trying to convey all of these elements of your personality and what it's like to work with you and what it's going to feel like when you work together actively in your pitch of your skills. When you're communicating your pitch about your skills, you're talking about both the content and you're giving someone a first look into who you are to work with. What are you going to be like talking to someone on set day to day? Usually, in these moments, you're also trying to convey the best of yourself. So you're not really pitching your grumpiest Tuesday morning attitude, but you're trying to be as authentic as possible with someone who's going to be thinking about, who is this going to be on set with me? How are we going to back and forth in communication? Or how much are they going to be able to deal with someone who is new and in an authority position, if they're an interviewer in HR, who's not necessarily the director, who's not necessarily the producer, who's going to be working with you day to day. So being able to communicate the skills, being able to communicate the interests, but then again, practicing until you feel comfortable speaking to someone who's a stranger and communicating those skills well, right? You with me? All right. So here's what you should be able to answer around your pitch and in your pitch. What is the idea? Is it that you are absolutely the camera operator for this job? Is it you have the experience across these different, advertising and television and film sites that are going to 100% zero in on the location that piece needs? Who's your audience? Is it a human? Is it a robot? Hard to tell sometimes, but who are they? What are their goals? What are they trying to get out of you in this situation? And what do they need to understand? Does your audience want this? Going back to our set and setting for at the Comic-Con, is this the moment to be pitching? Is this person actively looking to hire? If they're not looking to hire, then you're looking to make a personal connection and not to pitch yourself as a hire. It's thinking about the moment, and if you're talking to someone who's a writer, they may not need a camera operator, but they may be able to see a friend in you and learn more about your work and maybe at some point refer you to a job. How will you work with others? Not just what are you like to talk to in this moment where you're actually speaking, but conveying your personality in an authentic way. Are you snarky? Are you funny? Are you withdrawn but very careful and thoughtful in the way you present information? What would be our next step together? If you're pitching a project, are you fundraising? That's a very explicit thing that people say in pitches because there's no point in wasting time. Like, I'm looking to raise $100,000 for this. Part of the pitch Part of the most difficult thing about fundraising for most people is getting comfortable simply asking for money, stringing together the 10 or 11 words that it takes to say, I'm looking for this much money for this project. If it's, I'm looking for opportunities to shadow someone on set to learn more about the day-to-day work of a cinematographer, what would be that ask? Think about what your ask would be. And that's something that in casual conversation, it's not like you're trying to come up with 1,000 different, things that you want from this person. But at the same time, knowing what you're generally looking for at the moment. Like, I'm here at Comic-Con to learn more about documentaries and hopefully meet people who I could work with in the future. Or I'm here at this film festival specifically because I want to see this film and I want to meet this person and hopefully to learn a lot about what other people are making documentaries about. And this last thing is connected to that. The first step on your journey might be, would you be interested in talking to me more about this type of work? Or would you be interested in giving me some advice over coffee, over Zoom at some point? Would you like to keep talking about this subject? That's a good first step. But ultimately, especially when you're talking about a project, when you're talking about a business, like, everybody knows in a networking environment or in a pitch that is formal, where you're presenting your skills or a project, that there's something for you individually in it. I want to showcase my creative work. I want to make something that is going to be profitable. Like, this is going to be a global blockbuster feature film. I know it. I'm looking for an opportunity to show that I can handle this level of budget, or I'm looking for opportunities to stretch my legs as a DP. I want to build experience on set. I want to be able to make creative projects come to life and show that I can grow into a cinematographer position. Like, people are transparent about their goals, and that's entirely valid. But also, the clearer you are about your own goals, the sharper and clearer you'll be able to be in making your choices about what will get you there. It's not to say you're never confused or unsure, but ultimately, the more of this work you can do and think about, the clearer your path will become for you as you're making choices, right? So, the pitch. I'm going to show you another video, and I promise it'll be worth the time it takes for me to change this share screen. All right. So this is one of my favorite pitches ever. This is one of the best case studies, the most fun, the most delightful idea I've encountered in a decade. So this is the salmon cannon. A group of apple farmers in Washington State were trying to figure out how to get apples from one side of an orchard to another. And they figured out that if they used a soft tube and vacuums, the same way you can make a potato gun, they could shoot apples across a field and have them land safely without bruising. They then saw the bigger question, like, oh wow, we have got these huge dams on the Columbia River. Salmon are trying to get over them, so we can use this same apple tube technology to create a salmon cannon that salmon can swim through and get shot out the other side. Also, I just want to say, Whoosh Innovations is the best company name ever. It tells you exactly what they're doing, and it really brings that point home. So, ideas come from everywhere. The thing that you may be working on to solve a camera problem could have massive impact on the way a device for medical imagery ends up happening. Like, one of the reasons that Avatar takes so long to come out is the first film actually created wildly new visualization technologies and pushed the extreme levels of how we do the volumetric filmmaking and capture on green screen. And a lot of the things that they innovated on set actually were patented and are now part of medical imaging technology. Wild stuff. The ambition and scope of what they were able to achieve, astonishing. Now we have another Avatar movie coming out later this year. I'm so excited about it. But the more you learn how to pitch and present your ideas, the more practice you get with it, the better it'll be, the more easy it will be to communicate your skills to others, but also when these ideas do happen, that may be interesting creative projects or an interesting short film or a business that you want to create, whether it's in the entertainment industry or elsewhere, you'll be using these same skills. Breaking down the idea into parts, communicating it clearly and effectively to others, and bringing your personality into it so that when you're talking to someone about your idea, it's done with passion and authenticity, but also communicating what it's like to work with you. So, this was one pitch that you've already done. The introduction is a kind of pitch. It's a short one, but it's broken down into parts. It's setting up the core information you need to know, establishing a hook, and then managing expectations. What are the goals? What are the outcomes that you're looking for? Parts of a pitch. The hook. I have met development executives, the people who who greenlight productions, who only greenlight things based on their title. That's insane to me, but if the title is right and it sounds great, it does tell you a lot about the piece. Also, if you've seen movies about Hollywood or you've made jokes about Hollywood, you know that there's a lot of this plus that. You're looking to connect something unique to the familiar and get people's attention. It's like Clueless meets Clockwork Orange. It's Dune meets Weekend at Bernie's. I'm a producer who loves to experiment with new technologies. So as you're thinking about your pitches, whether it's for your own work or it's for a project, you want to be able to establish this is a documentary that's talking about something that's never been done before. So as an exercise for this, I recommend, this is actually an exercise that I'm stealing from Vince McFadden, who's the former executive director of the Producers Guild. With high-level executive producers in professional environments and networking events, he would ask people to introduce themselves using 2 words. So I'm going to ask all of you in the audience to do this with me now. And for those of you at home, I'm going to want you to do this in the chat box. So think about yourself, your skills, your strengths, your weaknesses, and try and come up with an abstraction that communicates who you are. So I'm a networking octopus. I love to have my fingers in all sorts of different pies, and I love to meet new people. I'm a curious sports car. I'm laser focused and super efficient and super swift and reaching out and finding new information. I'm a resilient casserole. I'm going to leave that one in mystery for you all. But take a few minutes and think about that same introduction you did. Hi, I'm my name, and I'm a blank blank. And then we'll ask follow-up questions, but give me your 2-word introduction of yourself. Oh, Kenny, I love you. Come on up. Yeah.
I'm a wandering sponge.
A wandering sponge. No, yeah, you're still up there.
Okay.
Why are you a wandering sponge, Kenny?
I love to travel and I love to see and experience new things and absorb all of it in.
Awesome. Really tight. Excellent, excellent work. All right. You in the back over there. I haven't met you yet. I'd love it if you'd come up and introduce yourself and give us a 2-word introduction. I'm gonna call on everyone in the room and stare you down. So, come on up. I promise it'll be kind. It will be kind.
I just called myself a sponge.
All right, we can come back to you, but I will come back. All right, someone else, come on. Yeah.
I was going to use sponge, but I'll say I'm a knowledge hunter.
A knowledge hunter. Tell me about knowledge hunting.
I'm always like, I'm at the state of like learning everything within the film industry, so just constantly just like learning new things. So
Yeah.
if I didn't learn anything within a day, it's a day wasted for me, so.
Great. I love that attitude. All right, 3 more. All right, come up, give me your name, give me your 2 words.
My name is Kira Bonka, and I'm, oh my God, I forgot.
No worries. Yeah, you can grab your notes, it's all good.
I did it right, okay, got it. I'm a
Yeah.
bubbly social butterfly.
Social butterfly? I love it. That's a great one. Yeah, that's also great in the fields that you've talked about, hairdressing, where honestly, someone that close to my face, I want to feel very comfortable with, and that ability to communicate back and forth is awesome. It's something you definitely want in that role. All right, I'm seeing Cindy McCrossan on the feed, is a solutions savant. Cindy, while our next person is up, tell us a little bit more about why you're a solutions savant as well, and I'll share it with the group. All right, come on up. Yeah.
I came up with, I'm a sound
All right.
monkey.
Take a moment. Find your tone. All right. Tell us your name and your 2 words.
I'm Roberta, and I'm a sound monkey.
A sound monkey. I really want to work with a sound monkey. That's amazing. I love it. Tell us a little bit more about why a sound monkey. No.
Because I'm willing to get into any position to find the right way to get the sound.
Ah, that's wonderful. That's such a great way to key in. All right. I don't know you, person in the way back. Please come up and share with us. All right. Come on. If you don't want to come up to the mic, you could write it down and hand it to me later, because I'd love to hear more about you and hear what brought you to the room. Sound good? Okay. All right. Well, if anyone else wants to share in the thread, you can type your 2-word introduction into the chat. What I want you to think about, by abstracting these skills, you were able to find a shape and a way to communicate these aspects of yourself differently. So sound monkeying and getting into all of those different positions to find the right tone, to find the right sound, like that's a great way to introduce yourself. That's a phenomenal way to think about what you're looking to do when you're doing these projects. The same way, knowledge hunter. Absolutely brilliant way to communicate that you are really excited to learn from doing and always looking for new ways to make the work, to improve the work. The second half of these are definitely things that you should think about when you're thinking about pitching those skills. And again, sometimes it's really hard to sit alone in a room and think about how I'm going to talk about myself. But the more of these exercises where you can practice thinking about the way you're presenting yourself in different ways, the easier it becomes to do it on the fly. Yeah? With me? Was that kind of fun? A little weird, a little fun, a little awkward? Yes.
All the things.
Yes, shared awkwardness is definitely a part of networking as well. Everyone in the room is a little weird about it, especially in a networking event where everyone knows you're there to meet people. There's still like a layer of permission to do it that people tend to need to get past. Even if you've done networking events and these kind of things for decades, it can feel awkward on the day just to talk to new people, right? That's something that can feel very intimidating. And the more practice and the more ways you can explore to get through your own intimidation, the easier it's going to be to meet new people and make connections. So, the next type of pitch. We've had our introductions. The elevator pitch. You may have heard of elevator pitches before. The idea here is you get into an elevator with the CEO of a company. You only have 30 seconds from the top floor to the ground floor to communicate your idea. And if you do it well, boom, your goals are met. You're going to have every obstacle removed, and the CEO is going to be able to 100% sign on to your project and go wild. That said, usually you have 30 seconds to get someone's attention with a project. Often you'll have 30 seconds or less in conversation to talk about something before someone's mind wanders. So I tend to do elevator pitches mostly around projects I'm working on. And the practice of doing this, again, is something that will help you present your own work, your own projects, and your own businesses better and better the more you look at it and the more you engage with the process. Usually, I will actually write out elevator pitches for projects I'm working on. I'll think about them in terms of summaries. I'll think about them in terms of a beginning, middle, end of the story I want to tell, whether I'm trying to draw someone into a mystery or convey the entire story in one place. But we've got a few examples here of projects I've worked on or projects that are worth thinking about that describe fair elevator pitches. So, I once made a micro-budget parody of the 1993 classic Jurassic Park entitled McCarran Park. Instead of paleontologists going to the world's greatest amusement park, it was a bunch of no-good hipsters looking for the best loft party in New York on a Saturday night. The problems they faced were the same: dinosaurs. So, that took less than 30 seconds for me to communicate. This is what I wrote down, and this is how I presented it on websites. Nothing ruins a good party like a velociraptor attack, and when a group of hipsters gets caught up in a whirlwind of Mesozoic fury, it'll take more than PBR and vinyl to get them out of Brooklyn alive. Sums up the whole story right there. You don't need to know more. The tone of it was over the top. It was very silly. It was very funny. Like the classic film Jurassic Park, there was a scene where people ate ice cream and talked about their feelings. Like the classic movie Jurassic Park, people were eaten by dinosaurs. It was phenomenally fun. And we wanted to convey that fun in the tone of what we were doing. What I just sort of rattled off to you about the piece is also something that I've rattled off hundreds of times. And the same way one might develop a comedy bit through practice over time, through presenting it over time, you and your collaborators will refine the back and forth of how you're communicating about your work over and over until it's as engaging as you can make it. It's an important part of the work you're doing with one another, because just to refine your idea into something you can make together, you'll take part in that process. Like, what are we actually doing, right? This is a 90-minute feature film that we've broken into scenes and put into a mobile app that's unlocked through a bar crawl. So as you stagger from location to location, you unlock that scene. And we need to make sure that it's really easy to stagger into the last 5 scenes. The same way we might be thinking about something that's much more serious, that's much more serious of purpose and serious of tone. Thinking about, we want to do a piece that's describing an under-addressed social ill. You're going to want to approach that with seriousness that also showcases the life inside of it. You're going to want to be able to showcase it in a way that's reducing people's intimidation to the topic. This is an achievable goal. This is something we can apply tools to. And this is the story of someone who has experienced it in a very direct way. Again, super broad communication, but a very different tone of talking about a similar length of pitch. Next up, how do you inspire people to stand up for a place they'll never visit? The Arctic Refuge Experience was a very different type of project. As part of a goal to help motivate support to prevent oil and gas drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, do something strategic, and the Wilderness Society partnered with Future Colossal to create an experience that would allow people to travel to the Arctic, a place that almost no one ever visits, to learn that it's not just ice floes and starving polar bears, but this incredibly rich ecosystem with life and seasons and plants and animals and people who have lived there for tens of thousands of years. So to do that, we had to provide a really big venue, but we only have a single paragraph to communicate what that means. I only have 30 seconds to tell you that we used 4D technology, wind, sound, sense, custom flooring to show you what the permafrost was like. And we took you through both a day and a year of time in a single 7-minute experience where you walked in feeling like you knew what the Arctic was like and you walked out with a totally different impression. So that's another pitch. You want to be able to communicate the ambition of your idea, the specifics of how you accomplish it, and the outcomes you want to achieve, right? So again, break it down to 3 points, beginning, middle, and end. How are you connecting with someone immediately? What are you going to do with them? What do you want the outcome to be? Disney Descendants. Has anyone here seen Disney Descendants? Okay, nice. Yeah. Yes. So this is a franchise that was launched on Disney Channel. This is a TV movies, animated show, books, comics, games. Disney Descendants is the children of famous Disney heroes and villains in a singing, dancing high school environment where they have to learn that evil people are sometimes good and good people are sometimes not so good, but also face off against some of the biggest villains that the Disney canon have to offer. That's a pitch. This was a franchise that we worked on, but it's easy for me to do this. I've talked about these projects before. My exercise for you is a lightning round. Yeah. So, I see you in the back. Are you ready for the lightning round? All right. For each of you, I want you to take a minute and think about how you would simply explain the following projects, okay? And then I'm going to ask a couple of you to come up and share it. Same for you at home. I'm going to give you a project. I'm going to ask you to take a couple minutes to think about it. And then if you want to share in the chat, I'll read that to the group here. And for you all, feel free to come up to the mic and share your pitch, all right? First up, Star Wars. Describe it to someone who has no idea what it is.
That's it? We gotta do that one?
Elevator pitch, yeah, do that one. We've got a couple more.
Oh, we're gonna have to do each of them?
Yeah, but you don't have to say it every time. So, it's an exercise to get you in the practice of breaking it down into those 3 parts. What's your hook? How is it presented? What's the outcome? Okay. I need one volunteer from the audience in the room who's willing to come up and talk a little bit about Star Wars. Okay. All right, it's easy to overthink this too. So, come on up, somebody. Yep. Oh, awesome, our knowledge hunter. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
So
Okay, assuming that no one in this room knows what this is about.
okay, so
Tell me about Star Wars.
I just put, a farmer boy gets whisked away to fight the evil empire while saving the princess.
Awesome. That's a totally valid pitch for it. Like, it's a classic hero's journey. Farm boy goes and becomes a hero. Awesome princess. It's top level, but really solidly done. All right, Kenny.
All right, I'll try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In a far-off place and time, worlds collide in a classic good versus evil.
Awesome. That's good. Kira, come on up.
I'm ready.
Right.
Star Wars. Be prepared to be amazed with the high-flying adventure with your soon-to-be favorites as they stop an evil force within.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that you all chose to focus on story here, because it's the easiest place to start with anyone, because as humans, we all communicate with story, right? Even if we're trying to pitch someone on going to the movies with us on Friday, we're pitching, right? We're communicating, we're inspiring, we're inviting. Other ways you could have pitched Star Wars, a decade-spanning franchise featuring the biggest stars of the age takes us in an epic battle between the forces of light and dark in a galaxy far, far away. Or the single most profitable film franchise for 4 decades, featuring the works of George Lucas and the amazing character of R2-D2, showcases the epic battle between a hierarchical empire and a rebellion set on making sure that the galaxy is free for all. All totally valid ways to approach it, right? All sorts of different lenses in that you might use with different audiences, right? If it's someone that you want to invest, you may focus on that most profitable bit. If it's convincing your nephew to watch Star Wars with you because YouTube has convinced him that it's not very interesting, you're probably going with story, right? All right, next up, Spider-Man. What's your hook? What is it doing? What's the outcome that they will leave with? And again, for those of you joining us at home, feel free to put your own pitch into the chat and I will read it to the group. Okay, pencils down. Again, this is also practice in thinking on the fly because we only have a few hours together. All right, who wants to come up and be our first pitcher for this crazy guy in a suit?
All right, I'll be first just to get out of the way.
All right, someone else needs to go first next though, on notice.
Timid, mild-mannered boy wants to get girl, but instead finds his life as a superhero.
Cool. It's a good choice. All right. All right. All right, Kira, take a full breath and give us your full voice this time. Yeah.
Spider-Man. Watch. A cute spider that tickles your senses and saves the world.
Also valid. Also a good hook in. I'm interested. I want to know how he is tickling my senses. I want to know how that saves the world. Yeah. Yeah. All right. All right, take a moment. I'm also going to pick on you for a second because your own body language will communicate in the pitch too. Again, sorry, picking on you, bring it up now. All right, so if I'm going to pitch, I've got my happy director's chair here that allows me to sit and talk for a really long time. But if I'm pitching, I want to make sure I'm sturdy. I want to make sure that my vocal apparatus, acting term, lots of good acting terms go into this sort of presentation. My airways are clear, right? I'm toned in so the person can hear me. And most critically, in human-to-human contact, I can make eye contact with the person I want to introduce into this world. All right. Okay, shake it out. All right.
So I said, Stan Lee's favorite Marvel character goes into, what was that?
No, go ahead, take it over, take it over.
Okay.
It's a safe room.
Stan Lee's favorite Marvel character is about a relatable teen who is constantly going day to day, going against his infinite amount of Rose Gallery characters.
Awesome. Really, I love how much of the story world you covered there. One of the things that I will look for when I'm reviewing a script or I'm reviewing a project and I'm developing my pitches are familiar hooks. So the one that I always will come back to with Spider-Man is our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, you know? Especially in these things where we've got huge range of canon that we're familiar with, you know. Every one of you touched on it in a different way. But over the decades that Spider-Man has been together, you know, we've built up these like mottos and these core hooks for Spider-Man. our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, talks about his teenageness and you know, the fact that he's sort of growing compared to Superman, who could be in the world and space, or Batman, who's a billionaire and has all of Gotham. Like, Spider-Man is focused on Queens, and that's enough for a teenager, guys. Similarly, you know, great hooks that convey deep theme and meaning. With great power comes great responsibility. When you find those great moments in your stories, or great moments in your ideas, or your script, those are definitely things you might consider bringing into your pitch too, because they're shortcuts to that meaning. But they are the hardest things to build. Sometimes you get that shot of inspiration, you know, from the heavens, and that's absolutely your hook. Other times you're working it and refining it until you get that theme and message just right, right? And ultimately, those abstraction exercises, like our 2-word introductions, help you figure out how to do that work faster and faster, but it's a lifelong process. Guys, give me the heroes in a half shell. Give me Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then we'll wrap up the lightning round. Okay, starting off with someone who isn't Kenny this time. It's time for pencils down on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. All right, Roberta, want to come up, give us a shot?
I don't know anything about them, actually.
Honestly, that makes it much more interesting. I really want to know what you think. Yeah. Yeah, and this is a good exercise in part because it's asking you to stretch the muscles, not because we're not judging on accuracy.
So for a show I've never seen before, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, crime-fighting ninjas save the day.
Honestly, that's entirely accurate. You did a great job. One of the things about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is it does tell you a lot in the title, right? The title actually comes from a joke, or rather a critique, that was made of media, I think by the head of the FCC in the 80s. It was something like, yeah, you know, the next thing you know, they'll be selling kids Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and people will buy it anyway, as they were criticizing the nature of content built for kids. And lo and behold, prophecy. All right, okay. We've had someone other go first. Want to come up, Kenny, or in back? Anybody? Anybody? All right.
All right.
All right.
Saved by a rat, fighting the evil foot, and a pizza party.
Nice. Since you haven't watched the show, they care a lot about pizza because they're teenagers. All right, let's get at least one more from the back. Who's going to come up and have turtle power? All right. All right.
Okay. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They are green and mean, but will save your life faster than cutting a slice of pizza. Mikey will tell you all about it.
Nice. Awesome. These are all great pitches. I'm interested. I mean, obviously I'm biased because I care a lot about Ninja Turtles. Some of the other things that you might have considered would be the story of 4 brothers coming of age while also being mutant turtles. The backstory of the Foot Clan versus their sensei, a mutant rat, who also knows all of the secrets of ninjutsu. These are great stories. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, also if I were doing a business pitch, I would bring up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was the single highest grossing independent film from 1990 to 1998. It earned more than $1.2 billion in film and licensing in 1990 money. It features comic books, animated series, television show, live action, a film, and also a stadium tour.
And Vanilla Ice.
And Vanilla Ice, classic, iconic music that has defined a generation.
Go Ninja.
Go Ninja, go Ninja, go. Yeah. And for all of you, you know, you will at some point have to communicate all of your most beloved films and television shows to children who do not know or care. So this is also a life skill. All right. So we're getting close to wrapping up and opening for questions, and I'm happy to stay after and answer questions for you all. But pitching your story, pitching your skills, really does mean using the skills that you've built. What do you have on your team? What are your skills yourself? How can you be creative with this? When Halo was first pitched as a feature film, they had someone in a full Spartan uniform, the full military science fiction look, walk into production company offices with a pitch book in hand, delivering that and creating this mood that introduced a whole new group of people to the scope and scale that story could become on film. When I was doing that micro-budget parody of Jurassic Park, we used all sorts of different methods. We were doing this in our spare time as an independent, and we created character Twitter feeds to get people interested in the characters and ask people to connect and do more. We did a fake podcast where two of the characters showed up and talked about chaos and botany. We created in-world hipster dinosaur characters like MC Sharptooth, who was a great DJ who headlined our final rap party. We actually, because we were shooting in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, like ground zero for hipsterdom, we actually got a guy who was running for Congress in that area for that district to do some political ads online that were about velociraptor awareness, because we actually were able to work with him, because he's a phenomenal creative guy who's now in charge of the city of Anchorage's cultural projects. He absolutely saw the benefit of creating something that would be fun and tying it back to his platform, because his most important thing was to try and connect with people who weren't voting. So if he could grab their interest by connecting in a more direct and fun way, he wanted to. And he was able to bring out a significant number of new voters that year, which was awesome. Ultimately, the most... this was McCarran Park. And I'll share that with everyone afterwards. But it's available on YouTube now in a full-length feature that you do not have to walk to experience. The most successful thing we did was actually a flyer that we printed out and photocopied, and it invited Bill Murray to be in our film. We wrote a whole limerick about it. It was our casting call for broader things, but not a single thing we did got as many views and impressions as that thing that we put on a poll and was photographed and put onto a blog that got picked up. It became a news story, and we were covered in a lot of different news publications about it because it was silly, it was fun. It was vulnerable because we were asking someone in an entirely silly way who is an utter superstar, but also an urban legend in Williamsburg, who was known for showing up at different parties. There was a legend that someone walking through McCarran Park, the Central Park of Williamsburg, Brooklyn at night, was, he was walking through at 1, 2 a.m., totally dark, heard someone behind him. He turned around. It was Bill Murray. He handed him a DVD of Ghostbusters and said, "No one will ever believe you," and then disappeared. So we were thinking about what was in our story, what were the elements of it that we wanted to connect with. No one says they're a hipster. That is something that one is called, but all of these aspects of what people called hipsters were interests and things that people engaged with all the time. So what of that could we share the joy of with people and how we were pitching to audiences, to collaborators, and ultimately, when we had the final piece together, how we presented it to the world. So all of these aspects of the work you're going to do should allow you to stretch your creative energies. When you're putting together your reels, think about how you can showcase the skills you're building in those reels. If you want to put together a portfolio of your hair skills, how can you do that in a way that shows the ambition and the magnificence of what you can achieve? Who can you find in your network, in your classes, or reach out to who's also building their portfolios or who would be interested in collaborating in these same ways? This is really why working in the entertainment industry is so fun. The ability to connect and think artistically about these ideas and processes that, might feel mundane at first, but ultimately can become a way to play creatively across the board every time. The things that you do that aren't as successful will teach you what to do right. Again, we did not expect that our casting call would be the thing that got the most eyes on our project, but it was a tremendous amount of fun, and we had a great time doing it. The last thing I'm going to talk about, and this is something that I'm going to go into in much more depth in my workshop in November that deals with script development and what happens before you get on set, is the pitch deck. And this is something that you'll hear talked about in business, you'll hear talked about in presenting yourself, but is a critical part of every film, television, or experiential project. The pitch deck is 10 to 15 pages, and it's the bedtime story version of the business you're going to do together. Heavy illustration, small amount of words, but it needs to cover the whole overview. It includes your written pitch, it includes the team you're working with, it includes the story you're going to tell, and all of those goal asks. There'll be pitch decks for financing, there'll be pitch decks for collaborators, there'll be pitch decks to get green light from a director you might want, or the studio to say, yeah, we'll support this if you can put it together. And these vary in their style. Today I'm just going to take a quick moment and show you the pitch deck and story Bible that Stranger Things used, because a lot of pitch decks for famous shows are actually online, so you can find them to look at them. But you'll also see that they often really stretch the creative to show themselves as artifacts or pieces of the world. Every aspect of your pitch deck can be a tool to help you communicate what you want to do with someone. So we've got our first page. We've got a very brief introduction. This is that elevator pitch. Montauk is an 8-hour sci-fi horror epic set in Long Island in 1980 and inspired by supernatural classics of that era. We explore the crossroads where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, right? Covers the whole gamut. I'm not going to read more because that's me reading off a screen. All of this is in the deck that you'll be able to access later. Yes, question in the back.
Like a Stephen King book?
Sorry?
So it's almost like, it looks like a Stephen King book.
Totally. It feels like a 1980s sci-fi book. That is a really powerful way to communicate the feel of the project that you want to do. Here, they've taken images from other films that they're referencing, and again, they're using that stylization to visually communicate what they're doing. It feels like a document that could have been in a closet since 1980. The Montauk Project conspiracy, like the deeper underlying components, and an image that helps drive that home. Like, this is 1980s Cold War conspiracy stuff. The story, again, this is a one-page treatment. It's covering the whole thing, the whole eight-episode arc as thoroughly as it can in a single page to read fast. And again, another reference of a different piece, credited, presented in the style of the piece that they want to make. Structure, how they're going to do it. It's going to be structured like a film, a definitive beginning, middle, and end, no loose ends after the finale. One of the things that is really, really helpful, because every project is different, every pitch is different, and finding your way to show yours off in a unique and exciting way, look at how other people have done theirs. I know that sounds counterintuitive. How do you make a unique thing? By looking at what other people have done. You will not make this exact same deck. If you're pursuing something that takes place in 1980s, if you're doing something that's maybe more musically focused, you might focus on cassette tapes or mixtape liners. But referencing the aesthetic of a time is something that you can riff on, something that you can make your own. The way that they communicate the information, it's laid out in prose, but I often see bullet points about structure that are presenting the information in a more direct and easily scannable way. For this, it makes perfect sense in a 1980s style. If you were doing, say, a movie about a consultant who, consults for superheroes, you might choose a more clean and corporate look, even from the same era. Let's see, taking a different tone and style. For those of you, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, and you said we can find these online?
Yes, they're, again, like a Google for pitch decks will show a lot of them. And there's a lot of people who have written about how to do a treatment, how to do a pitch deck. And honestly, a lot of them are publicly available for free because, people are interested and it's something that, creators have chosen to share. There are plenty of groups that will want to make you pay for an archive as well. There's a lot of free material out there that you can absolutely look at, learn from, decide what you like and decide what you don't. Usually you'll see and we'll go into the structure of these more in the November session, like what are the main points that people tend to look at. But for each of you, considering the proposals you may make to people you want to work with, especially for a creative role like a DP or cinematographer, this is an incredible mood board for the colors and the style and the framing of each shot. Each one of these pictures was really chosen to show the angles they're going to use, the color palette they're going to use, and the style of it, as well as the references to horror, the references to these films. They have thousands of frames per movie that they could have chosen, and they made these selections very intentionally. The same way, if you can build templates, learn how to use Google Slides or other tools that allow you to lay things out in interesting ways, you'll be able to practice exploring different styles that you might explore for different pieces and develop your design language while you're also thinking about the specific tactics you might take in each piece. And the more of the design language and the creativity that you can bring to a project, that you can communicate in what you're presenting to potential employers or collaborators, the more clear it's going to be, the faster they're going to get excited to work with you, and the more you'll have to talk about in the room, right? So these are tools that, depending on the project, you'll be able to use. Thinking about what tools are right for you, which ones are most exciting for you to play with as you're doing your presentation of work, as you're thinking about your approach to different work. Whether you're doing something that is for hire and sort of craft-oriented, or you're doing something with more depth creatively, these are all things that you can play with that can make the process more satisfying for you as well, right? And figuring out how to communicate your vision of the world, what you want to show and what you want to play with, is also a way to find the opportunities to take it further each time, to be able to discover who your strongest collaborators might be and make that jump from being on set in a support role to also building the teams that are relying on you for creative input, building the opportunities to create projects that are based on your vision or incorporate your vision more fully, and find collaborators that you're going to love working with again and again. Okay. Back to my Zoom deck. All right. I have had such a wonderful time working with you guys today, talking about this stuff, talking a lot. But I want to wrap things up with the most important advice I've ever gotten in the film industry, in the entertainment industry, and that's don't quit. Any path towards a career has challenges. Every life has times that are more or less difficult in them. There will be times where you get really tired of doing what you're doing, and those are times where you're going to rest. You can take time to rest, evaluate, maybe do something else for a little while, but that doesn't mean you've given up. That doesn't mean you've quit. It's a myth that if you leave the industry for some amount of time, you can't make it back in. It's just not true. The relationships you build, if you take some time away, will still be there when you get back, or you can return to them and strengthen them. The opportunities to do work are still going to be there. We're still going to have an entertainment industry if you take 6 months or a year off to do something else. Absolutely a thing. The skills you build over time. The experience and reputation you build over time. And that's a marathon, not a sprint. So if you feel yourself getting burnt out, if you're losing your passion for it, if you just don't want to work on projects that can be really grueling, creatively, intellectually, physically, and you need to take breaks, take them. It's important to be able to think about this as a long-term path, because in the entertainment industry, we want people who can have long, satisfying, exciting careers. We want people to be able to come in and stay in with us to build great work, to be able to inspire people and really share in the wonderful creative process that can make things really wonderful and improve people's lives by giving them things to aspire to and opportunities to rest and enjoy life. And to do that, you've got to be able to take care of yourself. So taking a break, resting, is not quitting. If something is hard, keep at it, but if you need to take a break to come back to it, do that. It's valid and important to make sure that you're building a life ethic alongside a work ethic. And I hope that you'll have an interest in connecting with me further and talking about your work. And one way you can do that is by reaching out to me on Twitter at Caitlin_Burns. I can't promise to respond immediately, but I will respond. And if you want to look at the links and the ways that I've laid out in this deck as things you want to experiment with, this QR code will take you to that deck. Looking forward to hearing from all of you in the future and seeing some fabulous work come out of your work as you enter the industry and make some cool stuff. Yeah. All right. I haven't done formal QA yet, but I'm here and I can stick around for longer. I think we've got just a couple minutes to 5.
Let's take the couple minutes, and
Yeah.
If anyone has a question, let's put it on tape.
Sounds good.
Anyone have a question for Caitlin? You always have a question.
Yeah. I mean, I love meeting new people in the industry. Like my selfish thing is I want to meet all of you and figure out, who is here, who I can work with. Every time I meet new people, I learn something new myself. And I'm really excited to get to know all of you.
Thank you so much, Caitlin Burns. Join us next Wednesday for Wide Angle Wednesday. We'll be hosting Chris Schuler, who is an Emmy Award documentary maker, and he will be having an interactive workshop here, and we'll be Zooming that as well, about what it takes to make a documentary. Please join us.
One question in the back.
Oh,
One
yeah.
question.
Yeah, so I guess I have a question. It would be, where is there like a central hub of meeting up with other cinematographers or camera operators?
And I would say in that giant list of unions and guilds, I know there are several that are cinematographers. I know there are online communities for cinematographers, and I would say I would start looking at the guilds and unions. It's sort of, there aren't central hubs that are like one-stop shops for everything, for most things. If you can't find smaller communities that are interesting, that's a sign that, maybe you should make that and set it up for yourself. But I would start with those guilds and, look at the publications as well, where they talk about cinematography. I think cinematography is one of those. And they likely have a community of interested folks on their own social platforms.
And I know we've been all locked down for the past year and a half, but we do subscribe. CNN Film does subscribe to American Cinematographer, and we do have back issues in our library, which is 126. So,
Yeah.
And they also have a lot of these publications are online as well.
Mm-hmm. And fun fact, people who are featured in those magazines and people who are quoted in stories tend to do that in part to show that they are findable. So if you do read about someone whose work you have more interest in, it's a sign that they may be interested in answering a question or connecting to people as well. So that's a signal to, if I discovered you in a magazine and want to reach out, like it's increases the likelihood that they'll respond back.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Andrew, do you have a question?
Just a statement, don't forget about Reddit.
Oh yeah, Reddit is amazing. Reddit is another good resource. I think, to me, I thought about it as a forum. Forums, there used to be many kinds. Most people see forums for the most part in Reddit and Discord now, but they're all great places to search out information, share information, and communicate back and forth. Yeah. Really good point. Thank you.
Any other questions? One last chance. Thank you so much, Caitlin Burns. A big round of applause for Caitlin Burns.
Thank you all. Thank you folks at home. Looking forward to hearing from you in the future.